Hey guys, this is Puppet,
And this is Griff.
and we are the Mist War podcast, where we will be discussing various topics about World versus World, big and small. You want to tell us what this episode's about, Griff?
Sure. So today, our episode 2, this is going to be about the unspoken rules of World versus World. So we'll be talking about just, the little things that nobody really tells you, but everybody assumes as far as, what you might do in a fight or, really anything that might happen where people have kind of things they would expect that isn't really in the wiki or anything.
Things that rage induce some, but others get joy from.
Yeah, a lot of this stuff is very controversial in map chats and team chats across all servers. So you'll be expecting to read that in one way or another with some strong emotions attached to it.
Well, is there anything in particular that just rage induces you that you would say is an unspoken rule, like in your mind is a rule and is like a big no-no, but there's sections of players that are just completely like, nah, I'm gonna do it anyway, and they don't give a crap?
Oh, I mean there are a bunch. I mean there's always something that's gonna, just because of how the game mode is. I mean something can
Sandbox.
be done that's borderline griefing that can inconvenience the whole server. The biggest one that, I mean, it doesn't bother me anymore, but you'll see people triggered all the time is the emergency waypoint.
Uh, yep.
Oh
Yep.
man, there's just so much
Tactivator
rage.
privilege.
Which, if you haven't played in World vs. World much, there are Tactivators that are placed by guilds in the bigger castles, the keeps, that would allow you to activate them, and then everybody can teleport right in there and save the day and get the big fight in and defend. But can only be used every 30 minutes. So if some random person pulls by and is like, "Oh, what's this?" and presses F and triggers the thing, that option is gone for the server for the next 30 minutes, and we're kind of vulnerable. So
Some guilds will also troll, and they'll make fake callouts if there's like a map that's queued. They'll go into team chat and be like, "Oh no, 40 plus on Bay," and they'll pull the Bay waypoint, like the emergency waypoint, and everyone comes flooding in, and that guild that made the fake call out all like jump into Eternal Battlegrounds or something, and man, that causes some drama.
yeah, it's the equivalent of calling fire in a crowded theater, and everybody freaks out and goes over there, and now the theater's empty, and we can go in and play and do whatever we want.
That's pretty true. I never thought of it as the fire in a crowded theater, but it's pretty accurate.
And it's totally allowed. I mean, nothing bad can happen to them. I mean, people try to report you for that but nothing ever happens. It's not technically against the rules.
You're not gonna get in trouble. It's a Tactivator, because a lot of people don't realize that there's a public activation checkmark when you select a tower or something, and you see who's claimed it. There's a little check mark in the top right that says public Tactivator activation. If a guild really doesn't want that to happen, they need to have someone present on the map at all times, and they can just uncheck that, and no one but someone from the guild that claims that tower or that keep or that camp can activate Tactivators on it. And as long as somebody isn't monitoring that, well, it's free game, and I don't think ANET can do anything about it. So at the end of the day, it's just griefing. It's not against the TOS though.
No, and I mean, it's not unheard of for people to have an alternate account, and they might have an alternate account on the enemy server and just log in and pull that just to upset people. And
That's just part of it though. Like, I know some people get super angry about Tactivator things, and I even know me in particular in my guild have done quite the trolling with Tactivators, but I think it's funny at the end of the day. It's not a big deal. I don't get too upset by it. I think people need to be able to take a joke.
I remember once there was a huge incident regarding ballista blueprints, where somebody that I know that shall remain nameless threw just hundreds and hundreds of blueprints without building them or anything all over one of our keeps around the whole Tactivators for the emergency waypoints and the supply, like, so it made it very difficult for people to even click on, things to get supply or anything like that. It's still technically okay. I mean, after that, they implemented the siege cap where you can only put in so many siege in one place. But
that's just funny. I know some people get really mad about that, but I personally think that's just comedy.
Part of the sandbox. I mean, it is technically allowed. It can be highly inconvenient for the rest of the people on your server, but
so. I wanted to talk about a few different subjects in regarding to, I guess, fighting or maybe things that fight guilds would have gripes about, because you have experience in open field fighting more so than a lot of people. I think the first one I'd like to talk about is nut hugging. So, I don't think I've ever particularly heard your opinion on nut hugging, and when you think it's acceptable, not acceptable.
Well, that's a fun term. So nut hugging, I guess, for the people at home keeping score, would be when two guilds of fairly decent size will just run right with each other, one right behind the other. They won't separate. So they're basically just acting as one giant blob or zerg, even though they are two, quote-unquote, self-sufficient guilds that should be able to do things on their own.
Well, I feel like we've always seen guilds like that. I can remember back even like 2015, there's a list of some specific guilds that I know that they just nut hug. They were always together. You always saw this guild and this guild together. I mean, it still happens today. I still see, there's a couple particular guilds. If you see them, you see their friend. And even if like they're both running 30, they're always on the same map together. And as someone who leads like a fight guild, like we're relatively small, we were like 15, 20. I just never found that very fun. I mean, not that I don't mind helping groups out, not that I'm going to say you can't ever help people out, and also we like to fight outnumbered, but when I'm running 15, I don't see the point in two guilds of 30 coming at me. Like one of them will be enough.
It really should be, yeah, it should be, but no, there's definitely a tendency for some groups to kind of blob up and get the maximum amount of people possible, and even if it's not really resulting in kind of interesting fights or anything particularly fun except for just running people over. But I mean, it can be effective. That's the thing, and that's probably why it's done, particularly on some of the high pop servers. I mean, it's not hard. It's not challenging. I mean, everybody in that blob doesn't have as much responsibility. They don't have to play as hard. They can just kind of blend in with the zerg. But
hold their W key down, basically. Press 1. I mean, I think that's kind of my gripe about it, though. Is you see a group that they should be self-sustained. They're already outnumber you, especially, you take a guild that's like 15 people versus a guild of 30. They're already doubled numbers, and then you got this other like 25, 30-man guild just womp, 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 like coming up being like, hey, let's run this group over. Like, hold on. Like, what are you doing? There's just no point in this. I think it's excessive. I think in my opinion, it gets guilds a bad rep, at least from my section of the community. It gives those guilds a bad rep. We usually end up labeling those guilds as bad, because they can't fight alone. I mean, you name it, we've said it. And I also think it causes guilds to get lazy and sloppy. And I think that's why a lot of times those guilds do tend to be bad when they fight by themselves, because they're so used to just having their handheld. They're so used to having their buddy with them that when they come to a fight, that even if they still outnumber the group, some group outplays them, or they play a little too aggressive where the other guild used to just pick up the slack and push on through and essentially just one push it, just blob them down.
Yeah, I think there's maybe a little less of that because the fights are a little bit longer, but I mean, there is a number where even if you are highly skillful and you maneuver very well, you're just not going to beat a group that's that large. But
I'd say right now the limit is probably like 15 versus 40 is like the cap. Unless who you're fighting is just brain dead, the cap is about 40 that you could actually kill a group, and even then, that's like a shot in the dark. You know, even if the group's average and you're super good, good luck. You know, the stars need to align. You need to be smart with the terrain and stuff. You know, and I think that's why other tactics are used in those situations. You know, like for my guild, you know, we do run 15-20. We also play very weird. We play we play like Condi. I know we get memed on a lot, but we do a lot of pin sniping, which I know is another subject that we had touched on that we wanted to actually discuss more in depth. So,
ooh, that's not yeah, I think we're probably on different sides of the page on that one.
Okay, Criff.
Having felt the wrath of pin sniping, yeah.
Then you tell me why pin sniping is so terrible. Why is pin sniping so scummy? You tell me.
So, and this is, definitely in the unspoken rules category, but I mean, pin sniping would be if a group is specifically just out to assassinate the enemy commander, and they're not even like worried about the rest of the squad. They'll just kill the commander and then run away, and and they'll count it as a win.
Well, I guess I see it as like a tactical advantage, because there's a lot of guilds that I know if you kill the commander, like specific groups, guilds, whatever, servers, you kill the commander, you're cutting the head off, and I know that guild is just going to immediately collapse. Even if they still have like 20, almost 30 people alive, they're going to collapse, or they're going to end up killing themselves trying to res their commander up. I guess I see it as an advantage and a flaw in their composition and just their guild as a whole, that if you can't function without that specific commander up, I don't know, that's not my fault.
I think that's a jaded perspective. I mean, it's kind of all right. It would be what you would call resulting to asymmetric warfare. So, symmetric warfare. We're open field fighting. That's what we do. We got two groups out there. We're duking it out. If you can't hack it at that level, or due to how many people they have or their skill level, for whatever reason, your group can't win, then you have the choice of either just going somewhere else, bringing in backup, or going with some crazy, terrorism level stuff and trying to assassinate the one person that's keeping your content going.
Are you calling my guild terrorist?
Yes.
Well, I mean, that's honestly kind of fair. I mean, we know that what we do sometimes is scummy. We're already considered scummy for running condition damage, even though that's another topic in itself. But when we're fighting, 15 versus 40 or whatever, we feel that pin sniping, especially with the way a lot of like our comp skills work, the way like the Necromancer Scepter 3 and the Revenant's Banish Enchantment works on their demon stance, those skills are kind of screaming, and at least in my view, those skills are screaming pin snipe, and they're not necessarily just affecting the commander, they're affecting people around him. We just keep the commander as a local target. It's a good spot, because we know when we put pressure on the commander, even if we don't kill him, everyone's going to be panicking to keep him alive, because now he can't make commands as well. He's not going to be able to be as relaxed. He's not going to be as we're pushing left, we're pushing right. He's not going to be as smooth. He's going to be panicking like, yo, I ain't got no boons. I'm covered in condis. Yo, I'm stuck. I'm this, I'm that. So I see it as a tactical advantage.
It is. I mean, it's effective. I've been in a million situations where some mesmer has stealthed in and caught me off guard and mowed me and turned me into a moa. And then, okay, I can't really command very well as a moa, so I got to wait it out. And hopefully, my group can keep me together while I'm trying to wear off this stupid mesmer skill. But I mean, you're right in a way in that it should make that group get better and make their support actually do their job and keep the commander protected, so he doesn't get pin sniped or mowed or whatever, shot off of a bridge, has unfortunately happened to me a few times. But
got any video footage?
Oh, my guild does. They're trying to do a montage. I'm dreading it, but it's
Well,
it's out there.
well, when that gets made, we'll post it here.
Great.
But yeah, I see why pin sniping's so frustrating. Like, obviously, I've been pin sniped before. I know that it's not fun being on that end. And I also get why, when you're more equal numbers, why you wouldn't pin snipe, or why it would be considered more disrespectful whenever you're pin sniping. Like, but when you're outnumbered and pin sniping is just like gonna give you, you know, a better chance of winning, I just don't think. I just don't see any point why not to do it. Like if it's gonna help you win and your guild is coordinated enough to pull it off, then there's just no reason not to. And it's not like, you know, in my guild in particular, it's not like we're mowing people or using rangers. So when I say pin sniping for my guild, we're not doing the, you know, the Maguma tactics of just sitting on a wall or something and just pew pewing someone from 2K range.
Yeah, and there's probably like a level of, you know, oh, we're super outnumbered where it becomes more normal. I mean, if we're in a super off hour situation, we only have 10 people around, and I'm up for some awful reason. Yeah, I'd probably be more open to pin sniping a group of 40, you know, if we could pull it off. But it's just probably not a first resort. Like I would go more standard and try to get another, you know, maybe guild to help me, you know, work on that teamwork a little bit. And
I think that's where we differ. I'd rather just pin snipe than ask for help. But
yeah.
difference of different guild styles, different commanding styles. You know, I know there's plenty of times where we'll be fighting a group and I'll find the commander. And a lot of times, you know, I just knowing the community, I'll know the commander. I'll know who the commander is, and I'll literally just say, you know, bum rush this guy. Like, we just, you know, pop gyros or something, and we just run straight for him, and just everyone spams 111 on his body until he drops. And is it mean? Yes, I get it. It's not fun to be behind that, but push comes to shove, it's just the tactic. And I think a lot of reasons why, even when there's a fight that is more even, on an even playing field for us, the reason I still pin snipe in that same fashion is because I want my guild to still be refreshed and refined on it. I don't want to hit a moment where we need to do that and they're rusty. I want them to get used to finding targets, because, you know, pin sniping in big groups like that, when you're not just like a ranger, is a lot more difficult than people think. Getting people to select an actual target is difficult.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, picking out that commander is not always easy, but if you can get them picked out, and I mean, there's an art to pin sniping. I'm not gonna say it's easy, but
It's definitely scummy. I get it.
I would say it's more effective in you know, in certain situations where you are fighting you're just a map queue, you know, a huge Pugmander for the server that has way more numbers than you can count on killing. I mean, but I mean, I don't think I'm as or like, you know, different guilds like mine that have multiple commanders, like they're not as susceptible to that. I mean, if I do get taken out, I can pass the tag to somebody else and, you know, keep it going.
Yeah, that's definitely always why you need more than one commander in your guild. So if, you know, the commander drops, you can just pass a tag. Someone can just pick it right back up. And, you know, I've even used that before, that for guilds that have PM'd us and stuff, and been like, you know, F you guys, why are you pin sniping? And it's just like, listen, if you don't have enough support to stay alive, then that's not my fault. You know, maybe your players need to step it up a little bit. Maybe you need to change your tonic, you know, change your look. There's so many different ways. There's so many ways to prevent from being effectively pin sniped. And I think people a lot of times in World versus World treat open field fights like it's the freaking Revolutionary War or something. Like, we're just gonna stand in a line and shoot at each other across a field, and then people get mad when you take out the dude that's commanding everything. I mean, I know that was considered like dishonorable, I'm pretty sure, in the Revolutionary War, but this is a video game. There's mechanics to get around it, so adapt or get killed.
Confirmed terrorist.
Yes, confirmed terrorist. So On the note of pen sniping, something I think that is even more scummy than that, and I will probably more agree with you, is spawn camping. I know that that is huge. Like you bring up pen sniping, and people will be like, pen sniping, I'm not a fan of it, whatever. But you bring up spawn camping, you just get that flat, no. Just no.
That's heavy. I mean, and it is done. I mean, there's definitely a lot of particularly little roaming groups that just take pleasure in camping right in front of the enemy spawn and just picking people off as they come out.
Well, I don't personally have like a huge problem with spawn camping. I think there's a time and place. No, I don't think you should just sit there all day and spawn camp someone, but like I know in the past we've coordinated with like an enemy guild before, or coordinated with another guild on our own server while they're like trying to cap the keep. Our guild will go like hold the spawn to prevent reinforcements from just mount rushing in and contesting the point. So it's still probably scummy, but at least we have like an objective and we're not just like aimlessly standing in front of their spawn.
Yeah. I mean, if it's for some kind of a tactical reason, that's kind of better than just sitting there and griefing new players coming through all day, I guess.
But you're right, though. There's definitely some groups that just sit there and they'll ruthlessly spawn camp. And honestly, ever since they made the changes, like they pushed up the invuln line, you can't. It's spawn camping. It's not even fun. It's like you're not even really spawn camping anymore. You know, people just run behind this line and they're invuln, and you can't even do anything to them, and they'll just sit there. I don't know. I think they did a really good job to prevent spawn camping. I feel like it used to be a lot bigger of an issue, at least the servers I was on.
I think mounts made it a lot harder for people to get spawn camped. It's a little easier now. You can take them off mounts, but it's a lot easier to get away once you have your trusty Warclaw.
That's true. So
But yeah, there's another big one beyond spawn camping that I think you see all the time is throwing siege on dead bodies.
I know it's someone in particular who loves to throw siege on bodies, even in the middle of raid. It can be the most chaotic fight in SMC, and there could be 100 people around us, and they'll still just manage to pull that siege out and just chunk it right on that body that they know.
Yeah.
They know that person. I don't see an issue with it. I see it as just like I don't know. It's kind of like giving someone the middle finger.
Yeah, and I think people take it exactly as that, and that's why they have a problem with it. I mean, it's I know some guilds that frown on it totally, and it's considered toxic, and that they won't abide by anybody in their squad doing that.
I
think it's okay in certain situations. I mean, if we just fought a guild and we won, and like they didn't do anything to deserve that, I'm not gonna dishonor them in that way just because we won. But
well, most of the times I get siege thrown on me, I take it as a compliment, because the only time it ever happens to us is when we're running like 10. We'll be running like 5-10 people maybe, or we could even be running 15, and we might get in one of those endless tower fights where we break into a tower and we just fight and kill, triple our numbers, but they just keep flowing in. And then at the very end of it, when they finally kill us after 5-10 minutes, they throw siege on my body. And I'm just like, all right. In my mind, that's like, I won. Even though they won the fight, I won because I successfully pissed them off just by playing.
Yeah, you made them work for it, and that's their celebration in a way. Yeah,
it's like the hurrah siege, like they're finally dead, throw siege on their bodies, yay! And I feel like I freaking see people dancing around at this point, but I don't see an issue with it. I know there's some guilds that are very against it. That's okay, just like pen sniping and spawn camping. Guilds are gonna have their moral compasses, and they're gonna have their no's and yeses of what they allow. And I think that's, once again, goes back to sandbox, just how communities work. You've got so many people clumped into one thing. It's even just like, how different the pugs are and stuff on each server. I don't know how many servers you've been on, but hopping around a lot, I've seen pugs act different. Yeah, they do some of the same things, but they also act different on each server. You know, how good the scouts are, and just the general knowledge that you'll find.
Yeah, I mean, I've only directly been on 2 servers, but with the server linking and getting rotated between different hosts and all that, I got a pretty wide range that I've seen. And yeah, they definitely vary a lot. It's a lot of it has to do, I think, with kind of the general map chat, team chat, overall banter. I mean, a lot of it is just annoying loud people, but there's still an average level of what you see, and that kind of like trains people as to what they should be doing. If they see a call out about another map and all they get is talk about anime and some random guy raging, they probably not going to take it as serious.
That's very true. Like, Pugmanders, sometimes I just feel bad for them because they have to deal with so much stuff. It's almost heartbreaking, the amount of people I've seen that they try and tag up and they start trying to become like an actual Pugmander for the server because the server's lacking them, and people just refuse to follow them, and they're sitting there trying to get everything organized, and people are just derping around, memeing in team chat and taking up spots, and you got people on useless classes, and man, that's why I don't Pugman. That sounds terrible.
Pugmanding's, it's tough, and it's only gotten tougher, I feel. And I mean, Pugmanding, just putting up a commander tag that's open in World vs. World and taking whoever you can get is a crapshoot. I mean, you're definitely going to get people that are brand new and people that don't want to listen to you and people that have their own opinion and are going to second guess everything that you say, and people that won't want to get in voice comms. It's a mixed bag, and it definitely takes some otherworldly patience sometimes.
I haven't actually Pugmanded in a long time, and most of my Pugmanding, was on a server that had a lot of ex-Fight Guild, ex-GVGers and stuff, so I really didn't have a bad time Pugmanding. So when I moved off of that server and went to go Pugman somewhere else, it was just like, it was a whole other worldview. I was like, oh gosh, like, what is this? Is this what other people are dealing with? So I know you Pugmanned a lot, and bless your heart, because I'm not about that life. There's a reason I didn't close
the only way I've been able to do it without pulling my hair out is to have enough guild members and friends from other guilds, and people that'll join in and help, that know what they're doing, to kind of balance out the people that don't. Because man, it's like herding cats sometimes. There's definitely some issues that you see with that, just with people not being willing to adapt to being in World vs. World. That's probably one of the number one unspoken things, I guess, that just is a grind in my gears, and probably most commanders' gears all the time. It's just, man, people coming in with some PvE build or some build they got off of YouTube from some player who doesn't play World vs. World, and something they just cooked up on their own, and man, it just doesn't work in that setting.
Coming up with their one-shot macros. Just
oh yeah, they cooked something up off of the golem that didn't take into account other enemy players are trying to kill them at the time. And,
full glass, everything, literally 0 sustain, dies, complains. Yeah, that's a big chunk of players, and I like that you brought up people that are like newer to World vs. World. Like, it's not just about being new; it's about people that don't, like you said, don't adapt to it. They don't quite grasp what's going on, and with that just comes a host of problems. Not being able to stay on tag, not getting in comms, not running correct builds. And at the end of the day, like we've said, it's a sandbox game mode, so they can do whatever they want. But I think that affects the community as a whole, and I think it ends up hurting the people such as yourself that Pugmanned and are trying to actually put something back into the server and help the realm and defend the queen. So that's
yeah, and that does vary quite a bit on server to server, though. That that, how acceptable is it to just play whatever you want and not help anyone, and not play coordinated? There's a different level of acceptance on that, different places you go, and it's noticeable. I mean, the general game has this whole, feel of, play however you want. You can play any class. They started with the whole idea, we're not going to have the Trinity. You can play any class as anything, and blah, blah, blah. And the people that swallowed that and think that's actually true are just so stubborn, man. Like, they're in no other game mode. I mean, in raids, fractals, you don't just make up your own build. It's not a thing. Like, there's a general idea of what everybody needs to be doing, and kind of, there are roles. I mean, there's definitely build diversity and, tweaks and different things that you can do, but there's still like some kind of guidelines that are there to make everything work and make sure, the groups have what they need, whether it's damage or support or stability, whatever.
Well, you can just see the knowledge that, like, the lack of knowledge that you even find in map chat, or especially if you go to somewhere like Lions Arch and you bring up world versus world, and everyone's just like, oh, well, whichever team blobs the most wins, or whichever team runs this specific build wins. And, a lot of times they name some build or some tactic that's from like 2015. Like, it's like irrelevant. It hasn't been used in forever, and people just don't keep up with patch notes. People don't keep up with just the meta, and I agree. It's a sandbox game. You can play however you want technically, but I think that there's things like metas and stuff and build sites for a reason, to not to make people into these mindless drones that can't think for themselves, like a lot of people in map chat will say, but it's to keep people knowledgeable and up to date with, hey, this is what these classes are generally best at doing, and this is kind of what your role. When you bring this, you can do this. When you bring this, you can do this. And way too many people ignore that, or think like meta battle or GW2 mist or something, or just some scam made up by the T1 elitist to trick people, which I always think is pretty funny to hear.
Yeah, it's absolutely silly. Like, there's some kind of an evil conspiracy of the meta that they're trying to force you into, and somehow that benefits someone and, stifles your creativity or something. It's laughable, but it really is, something that people rage in map chat about nonstop. And yeah, I mean, it's definitely improved somewhat over time, depending on the server. I'm sure it's not everywhere, but the servers that do well, that actually, have decent kill death ratios and move up and whatnot, they get it together. And when a commander needs, say, I need stability, let me get some guardians. I need damage, let me get some more scourges, revs, whatever it might be. Those are the ones that are going to do well. And the stubborn ones that just want to only play their ranger that they've always played, not so much.
And like, there's even builds for some of those one-off classes. There's useful thief builds, there's useful ranger builds, but people refuse to run those. You do have those people that come in and are just like, I want to play ranger. That's my favorite class. I want to play it. Okay, cool. Well, here's a good build that actually works with a comp, and they're just like, no, I want to run it how I want, but I also want to still run in the squad. And it's like, no, that's not how it works. You can run in the squad if you do this, but I don't have to let you in the squad. And I think that's another issue that you find with, along the lines of Pugmanding stuff, is things like private tags, and even Pugmanders who require people to get in Discord, or require certain classes, or they kick people out of squad, or they don't invite them from the beginning. And, that causes a lot of problems as well. That goes back to a knowledge thing. People, they don't understand how on earth you could exclude them just because their class or their build, or they don't understand how this guild over here is running private tagged, and they're not, like, how dare them not be open? Like, don't they know that they want to follow them? What's your take on that?
That is, yeah, no, that hits me right in the feels. Yeah, that's because, man, there is a huge sense of entitlement. And I can think of dozens of conversations and people that have, yelled at me in map chat or sent me whispers that are, angry because they couldn't get in my group. And I mean, yeah, I used to run open 100% of the time, and anybody join whatever, and I got tired of it. I never knew how strong my group was because nobody was really with me. They were running around, they were doing whatever. So once the UI was updated to where I could close the group and make sure it was only people that I knew would stay with me, or at least have a decent build, just guild members, whatever. Yeah, anybody who can't get in, I mean, some of them are going to be offended and feel excluded. How dare you exclude me from content, whatever, and you should be here to do what I want and get karma for me, and no, I'm sorry, that's not how it works. I mean, there is very little reward in the game for commanders. It's a thankless job. I mean,
I think it's funny how I've gotten PMs before when I've been closed tagged. People are just like, I was going to follow you, but your tag is closed. I guess you just won't get my heals. Like, I guess I just won't get your heals. See you later. Like, I don't know what to tell you. Sorry, man. It's a closed, we run closed raids all the time, guild raids. And, man, I think people think they're worth more in the game mode than they are. And I know it sounds horrible, but I'm not sweating. If I never had any pug support on a map, I'm not worried about it. Might be relieved. I know you probably have a different outlook on that, just how your guild is and how you function things. But I think slowly you'll come to the dark side and just private tag.
I like to be visible. I'm trying to get people into the game mode and teach and train and stuff. And so yeah, I do want people to come along and learn what they can. But yeah, I've had to up the minimum barrier of entry to at least be willing to get into voice comms. That is not a huge thing, but there's still a huge percentage of players that are not willing to listen to someone's voice come through their speakers. And I mean, it's their way they want to play, but that does limit them from being a full participant in a group that actually wants to play coordinated and have reaction time.
I think that's been one of the funniest excuses I've ever heard, though, was like, sorry, I can't get in voice comms right now. I like to listen to music when I play. Like, what? You can't just turn your music down and also be in voice comms? You can't listen to two things at one time? Or people that play with speakers that just blare their video game sounds? Like, who are you? Like, what is this, 2003? Like, come on. This is terrible. Like, just get in comms. Especially, and what sucks is it's always somebody who's on a comp class. Like, you'll find, like, that dude, he's on a firebrand, he's on a scrapper, he's running the right food, and then you get him in squad and like, hey, join voice comms, I need you in here, and he's just like, no, I listen to music when I game, or I do something else. It's like, if it was a ranger, we'd never know, we'd never care, but it's always something useful.
Yeah, so much of World vs. World is timing, just split-second timing. I mean, call for a heal, you call for stealth, whatever, it has to be right away, and then if they can't hear that, you can't type it, it's going to be way too late, and that's, gone.
Well, I actually know of a guild currently that has a deaf person that plays in a guild. And I think they have someone type things out, like small messages for them, but apparently they are really good, which is really shocking to hear. And, I mean, that's awesome. But I can't imagine... I don't even know how I'd react if someone like responded to my recruitment message and was like, hey, by the way, I'm deaf. Like, I don't know what to do. How do we work around this?
That's a tough one, yeah. That's
definitely a tricky situation, Obviously, that's not to the extent of someone being blind, but you're right though. Voice comms help so much with like reaction times, and that's why you'll have a squad, and you could have a 50-man squad, everyone comp to the teeth. It's just everyone's perfectly good, and you get pushed on and you say dodge roll left, and the 15 people that are in your comms will dodge roll and live, and then the other however many people, 35 people, they could go wherever. You don't know where they're gonna go. They may follow tag. They may dodge to the right instead, and that's crucial. And I think people don't give comms enough credit on how good a guild or just group in general does.
Yeah, it's night and day. It makes all the difference. I mean, I'll occasionally just randomly get a group going without comms, and then all right, well, we'll get into a fight and we'll obviously lose. And I'm like, all right, it's time to turn on the comms. Let's get in Discord and actually play for real now.
Would you even say that getting in comms is an unspoken rule, or should that just be like a labeled rule? That should be like out in the open. Like, yo, this is a rule. Don't.
It's not that unspoken. No, it is more and more just like the thing, and it's in the squad message, and it's spoken, and people still don't really pay attention to it all the time. But
and you see who those people are, and they get left. They get left behind, and it's their own fault. Just guilt.
And I mean, there's still a place for those people in World vs. World. It's not like, oh, you can't play this game mode now. Like that there's still a lot of stuff in the game mode that is more small group or more solo player oriented, as far as the scouting and the roaming around and the capturing small objectives like the camps and all that. But that is you could type something useful for across the map. Oh, there's a Zerg here, come fight them, whatever it might be.
Yeah, that's true. I think,
but that's not necessarily something you need to even hear in your voice comms. That's something you could be across the map doing your own thing, listening to your music, and you're just doing contributing to the realm, but not necessarily in that sense, I guess.
Have you ever gotten one of those scouts in your comms that like has to tell you every little tiny thing that's happening?
Oh god, that brings me to a great unspoken rule that just, man, I'm gonna like the Discord etiquette or TeamSpeak or whatever, the TeamSpeak versus Discord thing's a whole nother story, but the comms etiquette, man, like you have things to say, everybody has things to say, but what you say isn't more important than everyone else's. Don't just stream of conscious a long ass thing that everyone else is obligated to listen to, and and meanwhile the commander's trying to give commands that actually apply to the game. Like there's so many people that are not conscious of just pausing their banter and their chatter when something's actually happening in the game, and then just keep going on. Like, come on, all right, I gotta be rude and shut you up now. Like,
it's ridiculous. You get one of those scouts in there, or, you get you're Pugmanding, and you get that player that's like, hey, I'll scout for us. It's like, okay, yeah, cool. And then he's just like, oh, there's one player this way, and there's one player incoming. It's like, I don't need to know when it's like one player. Like, tell me when you see like 10 plus. Like, I don't need to know every single call out, or people scream when there's 5 people coming up behind us, and you're running around with like 20 people. It's like, no, like.
Yeah. The level for a freak out is not that low.
This is just unnecessary, and a lot of times you've got those scouts that, or like the scouts that weren't told to scout, and they're just scouting to do it, and they're off tag, and they're not even someone that should be scouting. You got like a necromancer scouting off in the distance, and he dies like over and over and over. It's like, what are you doing over there? I was scouting for you. I didn't ask for scouts.
Yeah, that unnecessary scout, yeah.
You've probably dealt with that a lot while Pugmanding. Or I especially because I know your guild is really big with teaching, so you probably have had to teach many lessons about.
Well, I mean that does come from a good place. That's the worst part. Like, people are trying to be helpful, relaying things that they're seeing, and you don't want to crush their spirit and be like, whatever, that doesn't matter. But I mean, there is a level of importance of what's going on, and whether it needs to, clog up people's ears or not. One guy running by probably isn't going to be that important to our 20-man group. Yeah, but
okay, so
no, it could even be like 3 people that are all assigning themselves that duty to say everything that they see and run off whenever they see something red. And no, it's kind of
I think
people assigning their own jobs, I guess.
I think people get excited to have a role, and people want a role. I mean, it's just like real life. People want to feel useful. They want to have a role and position, and I think people just get those mixed up. Like I said, a necromancer scouting that's not the necromancer's job. You're on the wrong class for that. You need to be on like a thief or a mesmer or a warrior or something. swap. Necromancer should be with the tag, just based on its skills alone. So I think that once again, it's just a knowledge issue. But one last thing I wanted to talk about before we close here is something that bothers me in particular that I bet you deal with this a lot is pugs repairing walls mid-fight. I know
Oof.
that's probably one of the biggest things that grinds my gears. You know, you've got one of those fights going, and a lot of times my guild will purposely let the wall fall. Like, we'll openly say that. I don't know if you've seen us say that in map chat before, say chat, but we'll be like, let them open it. Let them open the gate. Let them open the wall. Because we'll use that wall or that gate as a choke, especially if, you know, it's a gate and there's a portal that we can go in and out of real easy. And the enemy has to walk through the broken gate. And you got these pugs that just think I don't know if they think they're helping, but they're just like, oh, repair the gate. And then, you know, you end up like cutting half your members off, or you're backing up. I don't know how many times we've like used the choke to like hit him really hard, and then we kind of push through the choke, and we're fighting him outside for a second. We start backpedaling, and then the wall gets repaired right to our backs, and we're just like, well, I guess we just died.
Stuck there, yeah. Like, no way out, no way in. Yeah, no, I've had that happen plenty, and yeah, gosh, it's so surprising, but it's happened enough where it's like, oh man, not again. It's like,
The comms always sound the same when it happens. You know, it could happen once a day, but every single time, all the comms just go, what? Oh, really? Every single time.
yeah, and people are trying to be helpful. I mean, I guess it's, you know, instinct if you're coming into the game. Oh, something's broken. I should fix this, but not in the situation where there's all kinds of enemies around. That whole concept of having that choke point is not I guess intuitive to people, and yeah, it just keeps happening.
That's a completely another discussion for another day about terrain and guilds not understanding choke advantage. Oh my gosh. Well, we'll discuss that another day.
Don't get me started on jumping puzzles. Yeah.
I know someone in particular who's in both of our guilds that just loves jumping puzzles.
Mr. Parkour, yeah.
Freaking playing Mirror's Edge over here trying to fight a map queue. Well, Cliff, I think this is probably a good closing point. And we just want to ask everyone if you can like and subscribe if you enjoy what you hear. And we'll be having new episodes every week. This is Puppet leaving. And what about you, Cliff? Are you leaving?
I am also leaving. Thanks for listening in, guys. We appreciate your support, and let us know what you think.
All right. See you guys next time.